Starting in DFS, who's a player cracking 30 DK fantasy points this weekend, Geoff?
The saga continues. Uncle Debo Samuel, 7,900. I mean, this one is pretty easy to me. You'll go with your first inclination on your answer, and Debo Samuel is certainly the first player that popped up to mind here, and for good reason. I mean, he's gotten over 30 fantasy points on DraftKings 4 times already this year, but I just feel like you look at this game style. We've talked about this one. It's obviously going to be in a dome, a controlled environment. That's great. But the 49ers are underdogs here too. And the last time we saw San Francisco get behind in a game, well, I mean, it did happen last week, but also against Tennessee, 11 targets. I do feel like this is a spot where Debo Samuel is going to break out a little bit as a wide receiver because the 49ers will need him just to catch the ball a little bit. Obviously, you've got a Dallas secondary that's talented, but they also have allowed the 7th most receiving yards to opposing wide receivers. Excuse me. The big plays are there against Dallas. It's just so are the turnovers. So Jimmy G throws a couple picks. That's fine. We'll just get a faster paced game. I think Debo Samuel has all the makings of a big fantasy game. He's not a player I want to fade this week at all.
You mean the wide receiver is going to actually do wide receiver things this weekend?
That's still probably run the ball. I mean, that's the beauty of Debo Samuel.
And let's not forget he passes for touchdowns now as well. Pearce, who's a guy cracking 30 DK fantasy points this weekend?
You got to go with the obvious play, the obvious wide receiver. That's Cooper Kupp. He's the best wide receiver in football. He's got a great offensive line. He's got a great quarterback. He's got a great matchup. The Cardinals are not the defense that we mentioned earlier in the show that, the Cardinals jumped out to a 7-0 season. They've lost, 5 games in their last 8 games. This is not the same team. Their defense has struggled. When they lost Robert Alford, they began to struggle even more. Byron Murphy is supposed to be a good cornerback, but he has not played well this season. He's got a 61 PFF grade. Last time he matched up with Cooper Kupp, he allowed 6 catches on 7 targets for 70 yards. And in total in that game, Kupp caught 13 of 15 targets for 123 yards and a touchdown. I mean, we've seen him explode every single week during the regular season. Why wouldn't Cooper Kupp have another monster game in the most important game of the season? And if I'm Matt Stafford, he's the only guy I'm going to throw the ball to anyway. So just keep feeding him the ball. He's the obvious answer for 30 points.
Geoff, did we talk about the other day on the slate that we're kind of thinking like Stafford is just trying to be Mr. Nice Guy and making sure OBJ gets his looks too?
I mean, it does seem like that a little bit. I mean, obviously they've wanted to fit in Odell Beckham into the lineup quickly just because when they get in the spot, they want a secondary option. But I mean, I don't know how much they're going to be worrying about distributing the ball. They're going to be going to whoever works the most and who has worked all year has been Cooper Kupp. So I can't really disagree with this one. The only thing I'd say about the Rams is they've been running the ball a little bit more of late. And if they get up, maybe Kupp is limited to 9 or 10 targets instead of 14. So I like Debo Samuel's pure upside a little bit more, but I mean, the volume for Kupp will be there for sure.
And I know, Geoff, you also said you think the Eagles will put up a fight against the Bucs. I know Pearce agrees as well, but will it go over or under 46 points?
Yeah, this one it's a little bit tough. This total has come down a lot. There's concerns with rain and stuff like that. I'm not actually sure how bad the weather's going to be, but I like the under here a lot more when it was 48, 49 points. I still will lean under. I think this total is very correct. I think you could see a 24-22 game and it wouldn't shock me, but I'll still lean under here. And I'm gonna throw some heat Reed T. Fowler's way. He's got a great trends article up on the DK Nation playbook. Some good trends here for the under. You're looking at the Buccaneers last 6 playoff games, last 6 home playoff games, 5-1 towards the under. But there's also other trends against the NFC 5-1. Last 6 games in January as well. Last 6 games as a playoff favorite, 5-1 to the under. So the Bucs in the playoffs have tended to tighten up a little bit. And some of that that history does have happened under Bruce Arians. And I think that the Eagles defense is a little bit better than people are giving them credit for as well. I think they're going to keep this game close, and I think they're going to be able to shut down Mike Evans. I think you will see, I will lean the under here.
All right, Pearce, did Geoff change your mind at all from the first segment when you said you liked the over in this game?
No, I'm going to keep saying what I said in the first segment. That was an accident, by the way. I didn't realize that I was repeating information.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. You're giving good information. We're not going to complain about that.
So I'll add some more to that. Philadelphia has gone over in 4 of their last 5 games. The one time they didn't go over was in a matchup against Washington, and it's hard to go over when you're facing an offense that couldn't score when they were healthy, let alone when they were dealing with COVID issues. So Philly is playing towards the over, and I disagree. I think Philadelphia is a really bad team. If you look at how they got into the playoffs, the 9 games before they just got whooped by Dallas were all against teams that did not make the playoffs. Talk about a soft schedule and making them look a lot better than they are. You go back to the early part of the season where Philadelphia was playing real teams, they were getting thumped, and then they would score the points in garbage time to hit the over. We saw them do that against Dallas early in the season. We saw them do that last week against Dallas. I think you have a similar situation where Tampa Bay is just going to roll on this team. And I know Geoff mentioned that, well, they've been on the unders in the playoffs, but how many times have they played a team this weak in the playoffs? Typically in the playoffs, you're facing good competition, but this Philadelphia team is a fringe playoff team at best. Tampa should be able to take care of business, and then Philadelphia will get the garbage points that takes this thing over.
Yeah, the Bucs have posted 30 or more points in 6 of their last 8 outings as well. Like, Geoff, I don't know if you caught our first segment because you're dealing with a leaky roof, but really the Eagles haven't faced a capable offense, at least not counting the finale there where they got thumped by Dallas, since week 9 when they lost to the Chargers.
The biggest argument against Philadelphia in these playoffs is that they don't have any quality wins. I don't disagree there, but this is still a quarterback in Jalen Hurts who showed some pretty solid progression throughout the year. And I mean, you've got 2 teams to me headed in different directions. You've got the Eagles coming off a bye week with some solid wins, and you've got Tampa losing their number 1 wide receivers and, you know, struggling a little bit against the Jets down the stretch. So, yeah, I'm sticking with my Eagles call. I have no reason. Pearce certainly isn't going to convince me of anything to change my mind. I'm sticking with my Eagles call here. And as far as the total goes, though, I do think like the number is very close. It's not necessarily a total I want to attack, but I would slightly lean towards the under on that.
All right, we are running a little tight on time, but let's stay in that game. Brady's touchdown prop plus 170 for over 2.5. Will he go over that, Geoff?
No, I'm gonna stick with my call here. I mean, I think that Brady doesn't necessarily struggle, but I think that the Bucs offense does necessarily struggle to put up like 5 or 6 touchdowns like they were doing early in the season. Again, Eagles very good at limiting opposing wide receivers, and outside of Gronk, I mean, the options in the pass game very limited for Brady. We have seen him struggle, especially early on when Godwin went down. So I'm gonna lean towards the under on this one.
So then, Pearce, are you going to go over, considering you like the over in this game, or you think the damage will be done more maybe on the ground with some of these running backs coming back?
I'll take the over. They're going to score, and so is it going to come on the ground? Is it going to come through the air? Well, if you look at last season in high-win games, over 15 miles per hour, Brady threw for 3 touchdown passes against Green Bay, threw for 2 touchdown passes against Carolina. I would be concerned about a yardage total. But if we're just talking about touchdowns, I don't think the weather's going to be a factor, and this is a soft matchup, so I'll take the over.
Pearce, you said you just don't really see Mixon going over his rushing prop earlier in the show, so that's 76.5. No chance. You're sticking with that?
I'm going to stay with the under. The number is pretty high based on what he's done this season. Last 5 games, he's gone under this number. He's been under it 11 times in 16 games this season. He's only received 20 carries 4 times. And 2 of those were at the beginning of the season. Now, one of the times they did get 30 carries was that Raiders matchup. And that's Steve's opinion. And that's a pretty valid point. The last time he faced the Raiders, he went for over 100 yards. But on the larger sample size, more often than not, he's under this number. And we've seen the Bengals shift towards a passing attack. Why would they change back to the run? I'm going to take the under.
Geoff, are you in agreement here?
I just think the numbers on Joe Mixon are too big. There's just too many ways that he goes under here. And look, his last 5 games, he's averaged well under 4 yards per carry. So the rushing total, I definitely don't want anything to do with. If you're really bullish on Joe Mixon, I would just go to the receiving plus rushing total. He's definitely been used a lot as a receiver. Pearce has mentioned they've shifted more to a passing attack, I think, as Joe Burrow has gotten healthier. And Mixon as a receiver has certainly broken off some big plays. So I get a better shot to go over on the 99.5 receiving plus rushing total on Joe Mixon. But realistically, I actually don't even mind taking an under on the rushing total because the Raiders' rush defense has been a little bit better. And I think Cincy probably gets it done through the air more than on the ground.
Geoff, you mentioned that you expect a big receiving game out of Deebo Samuel. So my guess is you're going over 63.5 here for receiving.
Yeah, I mean, this total was 59.5 a day ago, and it's already gone up. People are recognizing this total is ridiculously low. Again, we're in a dome environment. We're in a spot where the 49ers probably going to be trailing at some point in this game, maybe not at the end, but at some point. Like, we're expecting a back and forth game. Jimmy Garoppolo, like we already said, turning the ball over, probably going to lead some Dallas points. It's just going to mean more quick tempo, more targets for Deebo Samuel. We've seen these low totals on Deebo a lot of spots this year, and they've almost always gone over. There's no reason to start fading this guy now. Absolutely. This one's just way too low in my opinion.
Yeah, Pearce, he could hit the over here in the rushing department, like at 63.5 or receiving yards, but we're talking just receiving yards here. What do you like?
Yeah, I'll take the over. And there's a couple subtle clues that Geoff mentioned. The interceptions that Garoppolo's throwing, and he's facing a team, and the Cowboys that have been getting a lot of interceptions. So that could force San Francisco into more of a passing situation. Garoppolo's thrown for over 300 yards in the last 2 games, so he's putting the ball in the air. And, it really only takes like 1 or 2 plays from Samuel. He's got a pretty solid matchup against Jordan Lewis, who has a 61 PFF grade. So I think taking the over or even parlaying it with his rushing total isn't that crazy.
Pearce, the Patrick Mahomes passing plus rushing yards prop now back up to 299.5. Over or under that?
I'm going to go under. I feel like I've kind of dug my heels in with this Pittsburgh stance, and I can't back down now since I've talked up Pittsburgh all week. But their defense deserves some credit. Their offense is terrible. We get that, and they're going to struggle. But I believe that the defense can at least keep them in this game or keep Patrick Mahomes in check. Even in the game where Kansas City blew out Pittsburgh recently, Mahomes didn't have to do that much. He didn't put up a big number. The key to beating Pittsburgh is on the ground with your running backs. So I'm going to go with the under on Mahomes.
Okay. What direction are you going in, Geoff?
Leaky roof, and now I got to get in a leaky Steelers boat with Pierce Dietrich, I guess. I'm going to take the under here as well. I've kind of been digging my heels in with the Steelers as well. I think we see this one fairly similarly. Look, Mahomes has only gone over this total, like the rushing and passing. I mean, twice in his last 7 games. It's not like he's been necessarily lighting it up. He's been a lot more efficient, but he hasn't been lighting it up. And I think that the Steelers, there's so many ways where Mahomes can go under here. Maybe the Steelers and Ben is so bad that like there's defensive touchdowns and then Mahomes doesn't have to do anything. Maybe the Steelers defense just gets them a lead and just like shuts down Mahomes with their pass rush. But either way, I see more scenarios where the under hits here on Mahomes total than the over.
Okay, yeah, 258 yards passing against Pittsburgh back in Week 16. Actually, it's 0 rushing yards when he faced the Steelers.
Probably because they were up by 30 before the game even started, right? So
for sure, yeah, they smashed him.